So, I know we've kind of moved on already from the Resident Evil 2v8, but with the recent survey announcing the return of 2v8, I felt I finally had to stop procrastinating on this damn video. I wanted to take some time to reflect on how the most recent 2v8 turned out and some of the issues that still continue to plague this game mode. I went back through my 60 plus hours of Survivor game footage, which is a total of 209 games, and I collected several points of data. I promise I have a job. And by no means am I saying that this data is scientifically sound or that it reflects the entire scope of the game mode's outcomes. All of my games are played on North American servers, mainly between 5 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, I sent out a questionnaire to get some outside opinions. And I got 10 responses. And one of them is my duo, so yeah. Take everything that I present with a grain of salt. Anyway, here are some of the guidelines that I used to make sure that all the games pretty much followed the same formula and that they would have equivalent information and data to give to me. So, let's recap. For the third iteration of 2v8, Behavior was able to use the Resident Evil franchise as the theme. The new killers were the Nemesis, the Mastermind, and the Legion. We also got the new map locations, Mount Ormond Resort, and Raccoon City Police Station. In-game, Behavior added bots to the survivor queues to help reduce the wait time for killers, and as an in-game bonus, green and yellow herbs were added to elevate gameplay. For survivors, green herbs healed a health state, and yellow herbs would remove a hook state. For killers, it was haste, and then team haste. Yeah. Also, every Resident Evil character got a new skin, and you could try playing them for free during the 2v8 period. So, that's fun. Wesker was the most selected killer at 81 out of 209 games, with Legion and Nemesis as the second and third most chosen killers respectively. As for the least picked character, the nurse was only chosen in 11 games out of 209. In terms of gameplay, I personally really enjoyed playing against Wesker. He's one of my favorite killers to face looping-wise in both 1v4 and 2v8. However, I actually did not mind his third bound, surprisingly, but it was actually the fact that he could recover so fast after he used his bound to vault. Maybe I'm being a bit of a survivor main with this, especially since the maps are completely littered with pallets and other junk that gets in Wesker's way, but I think Wesker shouldn't have both the 3 bounds and an incredibly fast recovery rate after he uses his power to vault. I think the argument can be made that since there is so much map junk, Wesker's 3 bounds both help him get around it but also hinder him in trying to get to the survivor. But I still think he was incredibly strong and I still enjoyed playing against him. I just don't think he needs to have that quick recovery time. He already has his 3 bounds, he already still infects and injures at the same time when he catches the survivor. Love Wesker, don't care. If it's not changed, I'm not going to be mad. I will always and forever be happy to see Wesker in my lobbies. As for Nemesis, he felt like the same as if he was in 1v4. Honestly, I was pretty shocked to find out that he still only has 2 zombies in 2v8. And I'm not sure if it's because with his power needing antidote chests and there being 10 people on a crowded map at once, I don't know if that messes things up to add a 3rd zombie to that mix. To me, zombies weren't always oppressive. There were a few times they did interrupt progress, but I just never felt like the zombies mattered that much. Overall, I think I like Nemesis more in this game mode because I know it's a stereotype and it's kind of true. Nemesis players will often tunnel the first survivor they find, and that will give them leverage later on in the game, totally valid. And I think because I often am the victim of this, I'm like, oh, thank God, I don't have to deal with it. He could just rely on his killer partner to do the work for him instead. So I think, for me, it's much more calm playing against Nemesis in 2v8 than it is in 1v4, but I still like Nemesis no matter what. I still think he needs a 3rd zombie. There should be a way to work it, or to make them much faster, or have a better detection rate. Nemesis needs a little bit something more. Maybe he starts off at tier 2. Maybe that would be a better idea. Maybe he just starts off stronger because he's a character that takes a lot of time to build up his power, and it's not like his partner is getting the infection rate higher for him. So, in my opinion, I'm totally fine if they give Nemesis a buff. He needs it. And then there's Legion. Okay, I'm gonna be honest, I'm really not a big fan of the mending simulator going on. It was more of a nuisance to heal up and have all that healing just get undone in a second. But I think unlike 1v4, in 2v8, even if you're hit, there's so many ways to just heal back up. I think in 2v8, it's just much easier to get back on your feet. You can find more players to help heal you much faster. You can use medic class. You can even use the self-care from Escapist. We also have med kits from chests. So as much as people probably complained about Legion constantly forcing us to mend, it was much faster to mend, it was much easier to get healed up, it was much easier to go back to playing the game, getting on gens, unhooking people or healing them than it is in 1v4. I don't think there's going to be too much change with Legion in the next 2v8 iteration. I think they're pretty balanced, and I understand that a lot of Legion players felt they got a lot more mileage out of their power because now they have way more players to put it out on. First off, I decided to make a pie chart splitting down each individual map that popped up during the time I played 2v8. I also decided to make some pie charts that broke down the maps into realms instead to make it more concise. Now, for the second chart, I used what's called categorical normalization. I know, big words. This treats each realm as if it only had one map so that they are counted approximately equal to one another. I just thought it was interesting, so feel free to pause and look them over if you want. Overall, I don't really have much to say on either new map. I do like the Ormond map as it feels unique to the other outdoor maps. This one is bright and it utilizes a large middle building with outdoor space, while other maps just have a lot of tiles and hills with one smaller structure. With RPD though, I personally was concerned that the hallways would be too congested, there would be a lot of traffic going back and forth and a lot of body blocking occurring, but as far as I could tell, it wasn't that bad. Now maybe it was worse for some people playing, but for me personally, it wasn't too much of an issue. When this map was first released during the Resident Evil chapter, the issue is that it was so big that a lot of players were so spread out that it was much easier for survivors to have control of the map. So it's really nice to see what the map looked like in the pre-cut days, and it makes sense that now that everything is back together, it's much more accommodating for 10 people versus the 5 people it originally was designed for. I think with RPD, what it offers is that it has a variety of areas. It's not just a bunch of tiles, it's not just a bunch of rooms and squares and rectangles or open space. There's some open space, there's some closed space, and every room has its own individual look. Overall, when it comes to the survivor classes, it was pretty evenly split. All the groups were pretty conscientious of at least having one person per class. There are very few games where 0 people picked a class and only a smidge more where 4 people would stack one role. I'm not gonna lie though, I did like how powerful the classes were this time around. I think my favorite thing was being able to heal multiple people at once or just heal back to a full health state during a chase. It was awesome being able to remake pallets constantly. Even watching gen progress go by really fast or making sprint burst distance when a killer was right on my back was fantastic. it just felt so much fun to be able to see that progress get done so quickly. It felt very rewarding, very stimulating for my little, 3 brain cells up here. But I have to be honest, it's just a little too much. And I think part of behavior's incentive to try and get more people to play Survivor in this game mode was to make the classes more powerful. But because you have more people, that means that if you make the roles stronger, you're gonna have more people making each other stronger. So I think we need to go back and rework them a little bit. In terms of the actual abilities, I think they're fine. I'm glad they reduced them to 3, one of them only being activated once you get hooked. I like that it's limited because again, it's recognizing there's more players that can work together to get the same effect. However, we still need to go back and adjust some of these numbers. But to kind of reel it back into what I liked about the different roles, my favorite was Medic. I feel like it's the most helpful to the team and it actually convinces you to go and rescue people, which is one of the most dangerous parts about Dead by Daylight in general. I know it's different in 2v8, it's not as dangerous, but it still felt good to go rescue someone, use that shaved off time to get Medic back sooner, and give people the ability to heal each other back faster so that they can get on gens faster. It just made me really feel like I'm a team player instead of just playing for myself. Which leads me to my next part, that my least favorite role was Escapist. It feels the most selfish, except for the sprint burst, which is really the best part of the class anyway. Windows is helpful, but it's just easy to turn around and find vaults and pallets on bigger maps. And yes, I did use self-care to help finish off heals or to heal myself if I was really desperate, but my preference is to go find a medkit or to find someone who's a medic instead. And it's so much easier to find teammates to just double heal you anyway. So that's just my opinion about Escapist. Do I think it needs to be fixed? I don't. So when it came to the killer games, this is out of 418 killers. Once again, the numbers are pretty evenly distributed. And I'm gonna be honest, Chief, I'm gonna be real honest with you. I barely remember what any of the classes do. It just all merges together. I mean, you're constantly getting revealed, you're constantly seeing killers get speed boosts, and they just know where you are. None of that makes me scared, except wait, you're dead?
I'm not doxed. It does sound passive aggressive.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Also.
And look, I know it's a skill issue, but goddamn, I mean, listen, I'm an avid stealth hater, but I promise you, I don't want Shadow to be removed. I promise, I'm not one of those survivors. I do think it's actually really good to have killers be able to be sneaky in this game mode because there's so much going on that you kind of go on autopilot, and killers can really take advantage of survivors just not being aware of their surroundings, having all this map junk kind of blocking their vision. And if they are not seeing the killer get revealed, it's a very easy way to just sneak up and, yoink, get someone off a gen. For my questionnaire, here's what some other players felt about the killer classes. Some of them agree with me that Shadow was just the most noticeable and the most annoying because you always had to be careful and look over your shoulder to make sure you were safe. Fearmonger was annoying to some people because of the long aura reveal. You would try to hide and you can't because the killer's constantly seeing you. There's also Brute, which allowed for people to be able to break stuff faster and then catch up with survivors much faster. When I asked for opinions about the catcher mechanic, there seemed to be a split as to how effective it was in the game, especially for the killer side. Though there was more agreement that the mechanic favored the survivor side. I personally think that it's so easy for this mechanic to go off and give survivors the advantage in places they really shouldn't be getting it. I think the worst is when a survivor goes down before the first generator has popped, but no one else has been hooked, so everyone currently on a generator just gets a speed boost for free. And in contrast, when the mechanics slowed down my progress, I barely felt the same way I do when playing against generator slowdown perks like Scourge Hook Gift of Pain or Pain Res. It's just so easy to stack multiple players onto a generator or use the guide class abilities to combat any kind of slowdown. While I'm not surprised that survivors found the herbs to be useful, the killer's side was an interesting mix. I had expected them to feel the herbs were more on the unhelpful side since it only gave a haste bonus. Personally, I really like that herbs were added to the game. They're such an iconic visual from the original RE series, and I'm really happy that they had similar medicinal properties to how the game uses them. Unlike Resident Evil though, you can't just hoard them in your inventory, which personally, I think that was a smart choice. I'm really glad that you couldn't just pop a health state out of your ass. We already have medic, we already have escapist, we don't need any of that. However, the herbs were very much survivor favored, and others from my questionnaire also agree with me on this. I don't think giving extra haste to killers equates to fully undoing the damage they left on a survivor. I loved being able to lengthen the amount of time I was in a match by removing a health state, but I think it's just too overpowered. I also wish that they made the herbs green and blue instead. Now, I understand that the yellow herb in RE4 gives additional health to your health bar with each use, and that translates well to removing a hook state as an equivalent to adding more quote-unquote health. However, the lighting in some of the areas made the green herbs look yellow. Of course, this is my way of saying I don't read. It's not a big issue, but I do think it's something to consider for when designing future items, especially if they're original ideas. Also, side note, if another player showed me a yellow herb, I took it as a token of friendship and camaraderie, because I'm like, wow, you could have kept this to yourself, but you want to help me out. Like, it's so sweet and it's so nice. But then you also have the guy who will show you a green herb while being a medic. and apparently that's more important than healing me with, your medic powers. I know I'm beating a dead horse with this section. BHVR already removed the bots during the event anyway, and they have no interest in putting them back in for the next 2v8. But I think for those of you who didn't play when the bots were in the lobbies or don't actually understand why they were so divisive, I decided to make this chapter just for you. Bots were added to lobbies to reduce killer queue wait times, because the thought behind it was that now you needed only like 7 or 6 survivor players instead of all 8. And while this did help a little bit with the wait times, the unpredictable nature of bots outweighed any of these benefits. In my questionnaire, a lot of killers brought up the same issue over and over. They would have bad chases where bots would run away at the slight murmur of a terror radius, or they couldn't be mind gamed because they basically have wall hacks. The opposite of this would be watching bots just run into walls or rocks. They would get stuck and then they just get downed very quickly. And that's just not engaging at all for any killer. It's very boring, it's very repetitive, and it's not rewarding in any of the slightest. Unlike a human survivor who, if you do try to mind game them or you do corner them, you're successfully downing them because of a strategy you've created versus, let's just hope this bot freaks out and runs into a wall and gets downed. Now for me personally, I actually didn't mind bots so much at first, and it's because there's so much going on around you, so I wasn't fully paying attention to how the bots were impacting the game. But I did notice this one thing. The bots seem to be coded this time to actually want to save survivors from hooks more often. Which is great, they're more altruistic. There's even this bot who did not give a fuck that there's a zombie right next to her. But the problem was, if you were getting unhooked, and then you started getting healed by that bot who unhooked you, God forbid some other survivor gets hooked, because that bot is just beelining to them instead. And with a lack of human insight, a lot of bots would do things that human survivors would power through or they would choose to save their resources on. There were many times where bots chose not to heal, they would stop mid-healing due to the terror radius, or they just wouldn't come to save because they heard the killer, even if they were technically in a safe spot to rescue. Many survivor players from my questionnaire agree with my observations. Bots would, in a way, get stuck in their own coding, insisting on doing the action they wanted versus what was best logically for themselves, or even the team. No one came to 2v8 wanting to go against bots instead of humans anyway, and I think we're all glad that they're not going to make a return, ever, unless someone disconnects. So don't disconnect. I know there are more bugs than I'll mention, but this is what I personally saw. I only played around 3 or 4 games on the first day of 2v8 just to encounter this.
Oh, come on, he got tier 2 from me?
Oh my god. Oh! Oh my god! Hello?
Hi.
I got bugged! I got bugged! And nothing worked to fix it. Wesker hitting a survivor didn't work. His killer partner trying to hit me also didn't work. Wesker could no longer get stunned or blinded, and he was just unable to pick up anyone else. The only solution was for the survivor or for the killer to just disconnect from the match. It's truly game-breaking because it stops both killer and survivor from playing, holding them both hostage until the very end of the match or until someone disconnects. Another bug I saw was related to flashlight saves. Now, I never saw this happen when I went for the save because I always get it. But on 2 separate occasions when the killer was quote-unquote blinded, I ended up floating midair and the killer did something else completely different and then was able to go ahead and pick me up again and hook me. It's very strange, and it probably has something to do with the timing of the save. Not sure what's going on there. Also, I turned invisible once. And also there was this zombie. Funny guy. So, how many generators would usually get done during your matches? Do you think just 2? Maybe 5? 6? Out of 209 games, 161 of them saw all 8 generators completed. That is 77% of all the games I played. So, why are generators going so fast? why is almost every game ending with all generators completed, even if every player dies. Given that this is the third iteration of 2v8, most players going into the game mode know how it works. This time, there are no free weekend offerings for non-game owners, unlike the first two iterations, and that meant that every player who joined 2v8 owned the game and most likely has played 1v4 a few times. Gameplay-wise, when a survivor loads into a match, they can do one of four things. They can start working on a generator, they can open a chest, cleanse a totem, or find a killer to initiate chase with. The only divergence from this is when the survivors begin to get injured and hooked. So imagine having groups of 2 to 4 survivors spawning in together and getting to work immediately on a generator. Then add one person in the group as a guide, or someone that runs by who is a guide and gives everyone a boost on generator progress. If we also add that a player went down fast at the start of the game, before a generator even pops, even though the killers don't have a strong advantage at this point, the catch-up mechanic still kicks in and gives a repair speed boost. As for the killers, their playstyle now is to work alongside their killer partner and to use their powers to take down survivors. There are too many survivors to strategically tunnel a specific player out on purpose. Camping a cage allows for other survivors to work on gens with no pressure, and the cage moves away anyway at a certain point if the killer is hovering. Slugging is ineffective when other survivors can easily pick each other up or use their ability to get base kit unbreakable. And while 5-genning is slightly possible, depending on how many survivors are left, it may be hard to stop a quickly progressing gen from popping. 2v8 will always be a no MMR game mode. Adding MMR will further restrict lobbies and will make everyone wait in longer queues. We're always going to have killers who need more time to set up before they start getting hooks, and we'll also have killers playing solo and getting matched with strangers. So, how do we fix these other issues to prevent every game from racing through generators? Here are my recommendations. The easiest solution is to adjust the survivor classes. Since there are more of us, we can combine our abilities much easier than in 1v4 to get value. We can actually see what everyone else has brought to the lobby, and we can coordinate better to finish generators and finish off heals. Even though it wasn't that big of an issue, I think we should still limit each role to 3 people maximum per class, and have each role nerfed to be somewhat useful, but not overpowering. I think the classes can remain the same ability-wise, so it's simply the cooldowns and stacking that needs a revisit. Another easy fix is to design more gens to only allow a maximum of 2 people on it at once to prevent player stacking. Now, I'm no map designer, nor do I have the stats of how the generators are laid out on each map. However, I do think it would help to limit how many generators allow for 3 to 4 people on it at once. The only 4-person generator should be the one at Killer Shack, while the other 3-person gens could be spread out across the map. The rest could be 2-player generators, with 1 or 2 being solo. If behavior wants to keep the generators open to 3 or more players though, since that's a more unique occurrence in 2v8, perhaps a version of corrupt intervention could be used instead. At the start of each match, 4 to 5 random generators would be selected across the entire map to be blocked off until a survivor goes down, or until a generator is completed. This would prevent part of the team from always hopping instantly on a new generator as soon as they spawned in. They will always be forced to move around the map and find a new objective. A more difficult solution would be to revisit the catch-up mechanic. In my opinion, this mechanic should only kick in for survivors when players start getting their second hook, and especially when they've died, because at that point, a dead player is 1 less person to work on generators. But there have been times when, within a few minutes from a match starting, a player gets hooked and gets killed fast or gives up and goes next. So imagine the 7 remaining players getting a permanent speed boost for the next several generators to quote-unquote catch up with that. But is this a frequent enough occurrence where my solution would cause a problem? That, I don't know. That has to be looked into a little bit more. So the final and most important solution that I have goes all the way back to the most consistent and spoken about problem that 2v8 has faced since its inception. Survivors are bored. If we're being honest, 2v8 for Survivor feels mostly the same as 1v4 gameplay. But now, you just have some extra people getting your way. I mean, I'm half kidding. Survivors just need more objectives and side quests to keep their interest. I truly believe that a lot of players who enjoy 2v8 and want to keep playing only stop doing so because everything just becomes way too repetitive. It's so easy to just go on autopilot and play passively, but it's more mind-numbing versus relaxing and fun. I would play this game mode at midnight or 1 a.m. solo queue, and it just felt like I could function with half my brain turned on. Buffing the survivor classes was nice, but it's not fair to the killers if it constantly overpowers their side. Blood point bonuses are nice, but you can get blood points through other events. Giving free weekends to non-game owners is nice, but not everyone who tries the game will like it or even want to play future 2v8 iterations. Offering free trials for survivors you don't own is nice, but survivors are basically glorified skins. You can't even use their perks in 2v8, so testing out a character can only be done in 1v4. So they're not going to even be playing 2v8. Having herbs to aid your gameplay is nice, but it's still revolved around healing and hooks. Every class functions as a pre-made perk kit. Every action, gen repair, healing, unhooking, chase, totem cleansing, and chest opening. It's just the same as it is in 1v4, and with a limit on which killers and maps are available, it can become a repetitive mess. And this of course is eased as new iterations come out, but if the gameplay is the same for survivors, they're just going to go back to 1v4, deal with just one killer, be able to bring all their favorite perks and offerings. And this is where I think the generator problem is a symptom of the survivor experience. Survivors have nothing unique to do, so they just do the objective. The various speed bursts with toolboxes, guide class, player stacking, and the catch-up mechanic just exacerbate the problem. And when survivors stop joining queues, the queues get longer for killers, which means miserable gen rushing games for killers where they have to fight the entire time just to keep up. This is the biggest issue consistently. Is that really what we want out of 2v8? I liked it. Look, I wouldn't have binged 2v8 for 60 some hours if I didn't. And I felt this version took longer for me to get bored of. Of course, the repetition creeps up on you, but I was happy to see a variety of maps to keep things from going stale, and it was really awesome seeing the different killer combos as the weeks went on and the initial hype for the new killers was fading. I hope that Behavior continues to add more collectibles like herbs to future iterations, and if Behavior wants to resolve a lot of the existing problems in 2v8, the survivor experience needs to be looked at first. Adding different classes for survivors, and adding one or two more things for survivors to do that isn't related to 1v4 gameplay is a really good start. And after that, if generators are still flying, perhaps the solutions I mentioned could be explored. At the start of this month, Behavior released a survey asking people their opinions about 2v8 and how it's going to come later this month. I'm really happy to see that a lot of things that I mentioned in this video have been brought up in this first survey question. But what I'm really happy about is that from my questionnaire, a lot of people said they would return to 2v8 no matter how the game mode turns out for a specific iteration. They want to keep playing it, they enjoy it, and the experience that it gives them outside of 1v4, and I'm really happy to hear that people are excited about other game modes that have come to Dead by Daylight. Anyway, I want to thank you so much for watching my video. I know I mostly focus on the survivor issues, and there's a lot of other smaller issues, and especially large issues for killers, but I just wanted to talk about what it's like playing the survivor mode because it's a uniform experience versus individual depending on which killer you play as. Anyway, please enjoy my 2v8 montage. It has a lot of Leon moans, so you have to stay and watch it. Leave a comment, subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video.
Game over. I died.
Oh, fuck! What the fuck was that? Hey! Nice! I see you, queen. Oh, nice hit. Oh, oh my god! Oh shit!
He's chasing me. Wait, what? He didn't hit me there? I thought for sure he would have hit me there.
Girly pop, I don't know what demons you're fighting, but they are not there.
I think they're coming here. The hillbilly is coming?
No!
Inside the... Can you leave?
He just straight up is ignoring. Ah, bro!
Bro!
Yeah. I didn't even think Wesker's in this game.
She poked me.
Nah, he's not in this game.
Is he in this game, Chest? If I can touch this guy.
Shit. Shit. Oh. You know it.
Gems? Gems?
Help me! No. Jesus Christ, bro.
I need to help you. You're like so
I know.
done. There's a pallet over here.
I'm trying to. Oh crap! Roz, help, help, help! Where are you?
Oh no. No!
Yes! Yes!
You're welcome. You're fucking welcome.
Dude, that was insane. Wait. Oh, I'm safe, bro.